I am fucking ridiculous. Anywho, hey people, guess what? It's another time for some Monster Musume. What are we on? Episode 7? Episode 7 of Monster Musume review. And we got our final girl, the arachnid. Just to let you know, I'm afraid of spiders. I'm not a huge fan of spiders. I have a bad vision. I have an overactive imagination, so even talking or looking at spiders for too long, even though on the computer, makes me paranoid as if one is crawling on me. So I don't. Rajra, different story because I don't really think of her as a spider as much as a girl, which I think is the point. Anyways, yeah. Also, before I continue, somebody linked to me a website where they start showing some of the images for the uncensored version of Monster Musume, and if I believe so, the first batch of, I think the first Blu-ray with the uncensored version for episodes 1 and 2 comes out September, and I think it continues until about February of next year, so we won't even have the fully uncensored version of the damn show until like next year. So, yeah. Good news is the uncensored version is heavily uncensored. More so than what I thought, actually. I didn't mention it before because last week it didn't really bug me too much, but last week is heavily censored. The whole egg laying scene, the scenes where she's moaning, people thought that was lewd. Bruh, you don't even know. Go watch it. The uncensored version of that is worse. Go read the manga. The manga has a full-on crotch shot. It is insane. She is wearing underwear, even though they do show a scene of her of Kurusu taking off her underwear. It's so much, and the uncensored in the anime is fucking ridiculous. They didn't even. They're like, we're gonna give you a direct manga translation because they. But the only thing I find weird in the anime is that for some reason they make him bleed, which I think is more of a thing to just make it seem more realistic. Because technically he doesn't. I don't think the only time you see blood is literally. Actually, this episode was like one of the only times you actually see blood in the manga and anime, which is when you're introducing the Mon characters. Our zombie girl, our doppelganger, our ogre, and our cyclops. Just to warn you, the characters. I'm not gonna say the character. Well, we're gonna start getting more into that mystical shit as we continue on. Because, you know, the whole concept is supposed to be a whole bunch of monster girls, but really what it is non-human species. That becomes more of a key phrase as we continue forth, because some of these things don't... As we progress, some of the characters we meet later on aren't considered monster girls. They're just considered, like, non-human characters. Like, you're just not human. Like, that's what it's considered as. So, yeah. That's a thing. But anyways, we're introduced to Mrs. Smith teams. The girls who've been singing the endings the whole fucking time, but we have never met. And people are like, why? And some people are like, why is this shit being introduced so late? Because the anime and manga switched around chapters. They're actually introduced probably about an episode or two earlier. The reason why they're shown here, I think, is because it's like what someone else had told me in the beginning when they first started airing this. They're trying to get through all the main girls as quick as they can. That's why, if you've noticed, almost every episode has introduced a girl in some way, shape, or form. First episode, Mia. Second episode, Centauria and Poppy. Third episode, nothing, but it was alluding to Sue. Fourth episode, Sue. Fifth episode, Meryl. Sixth episode, I believe, nothing but alluding to Ratchera. And then this episode, Ratchera. They want to throw in all the girls as quick as they possibly can. And ironically enough, all of these are canon. Every episode has been canon, minus a few scenes and like some filler moments. But other than that, everything has been canon. Like 90% of this has been canon. So I will say this is probably one of the more better adapted harem animes. Granted, we'll see how that season finale goes. That will determine a lot for me. Let's see how that season finale goes. But yeah, the first half of this is introducing the characters of Mon. And the second, which ironically is probably, I'll be honest, and I think a lot of people even said it, this is the part where it starts getting way more serious and the goofy harem antics that we've been used to the entire time. Like before this shit, it was really just look, it's a bird girl flying. Ooh, look, it's a centaur with giant boobies. Ooh, look, it's a snake girl with a ridiculous long tongue, so she can do sexual favors for you. Like it was super chilled out, and then like this episode introduces the whole. And we already knew this shit was in the background, but it kind of tries to bring more of the political side back into it by because even Ratchet herself as a character is expressed in a different way than the other girls. The other girls are just kind of like simple girls, versus Ratchet, who obviously has some emotional issues regarding her original host family. She's the kind of girl who can't like, and I like how her personality is vastly different. She's more of a darker kind of girl, which I find kind of funny considering Meryl also dresses in like golf clothes. If you've noticed, she's a mermaid who has an obsession with tragic romances, who dresses like a golf, but has like a really upstanding personality, like a royalty personality. So it's like, well, that's a very weird combination. But then again, a lot of people don't really like Meryl. Meryl's usually on the bottom of almost everybody's list, which may change in the next few chapters of the manga. We'll see. But I like the whole thing with Ratchet being super defensive. She is super defensive and super skeptical, and she's the girl who appreciates honesty more than anything. She can't stand liars and she can't stand hypocrites, and she's also very distrusting, which makes sense because she's been burned in the past. Ratchet, Musume Musume in general has girls I generally like. Like almost every girl I like. Meryl is my least favorite, but that's not necessarily because she's not focused on. It's just because she has the least interesting backstory stuff, which may change in future chapters. You know, the manga's still ongoing. It's just monthly. Ratchet, though, surprisingly is a little higher on my list, way higher than I thought she'd be, considering she's a spider girl. Like, I told a lot of people my favorite characters are Lala, which you haven't met yet. You've seen the anime design for her, and the manga and the volume cover that she's on just came out in America, volume 7. But you will see in the anime. Sue and Centauria. Ratchet is like right there. And it's not, and I think it's because I find her more. I like the fact that you give me a teaser character. Also, a character who has an obsession with BDSM. Ratchet loves tying shit up. But then again, this episode kind of told you that. And also, we get to find out what Kurusu's fetish is. Which, they're not going to adapt it, but there's like some, not mini chapters. I guess they are called mini chapters. There are some mini chapters in between the main chapters that are shown, or like right before the main chapter, and one of them is actually talking about what fetish does Kurusu have, and because you know Mia's all about Mia's about the waist, Centauria is breast, Poppy is ass. This was before Sue was introduced, Sue Mero or anyone afterwards, and they were like, "Well, what's your fetish?" And he's like, legs. And everyone's like, you motherfucker. And a lot of people were even saying in the comments, like, well, if he has a leg fetish, that means Mia automatically loses. And then, I wanted to get that clip from The Simpsons that goes, aha! Oh my god. I have the hiccups. It's not good. Luckily, I have Powerade. Unfortunately, I feel like this is going to be way more of a hindrance than it needs to be. Fuck. Anywho, there's not really anything else to address with the anime episode. So, real quick before we get into the manga stuff, which really isn't too much to be honest with you, but anyways, before we get into that, next episode preview, probably the chapters they're adapting are like my two favorites. It's Sue and Ratchet / Centauria. Right there. That's like top 3 characters. That's like right there. That's like within like the top 3 characters. Bruh. Next week's gonna be great. Next week's gonna be so good. I'm not even gonna ruin it. I think I mean if you've looked at the manga section of my reviews, then you already know why I'm super excited about the the Sue focus portion of next week. But oh my god. Ooh, yes. Now for the manga section, which will be relatively short because there's not too much to talk about. So, manga section, people. They censored a pretty decent amount of Ratchura stuff, which I thought they would, because Ratchura takes her shirt off. I don't think she didn't take her shirt off in this particular episode. I think it'll be next week's. Next week's, they're gonna censor the shit out of that. I already know, because they censored the shit out of this. Like in the manga, when she like takes off her shirt and she like puts her breasts on top of him, in the manga, her breasts are in his face, like from the back, and we can see every fucking thing. So, and they just completely just changed that scene. That scene's just her breast on his back, which I think works better because we got a weird ass shot that I don't know how I feel about. I'm not totally sure. Most of that shit was censored. It's not too bad. And then they took out the nipples. I mean, even with Zombina. But then again, the nipples aren't even in Zombina's section in the beginning of the episode. They did change a few scenes. Like, for example, the scene... I went back and read it. The scene in which they're, like, going in the house that Ratchura and the director guy was in. In the manga, when... what's her name? Mina? What is her name? The ogre. I forget her name. When the ogre trips and falls on Zombina, in the manga, they show her being, shows her crushing Zombina. In the anime, they just kind of off-screen it for some reason. It's not even like a major cut. I don't even think it was a big deal. Maybe you can't show... I mean, you've already mentioned the girl's a zombie, so it's not like it's a big deal. I don't know if that was just to cut down on time, which might have been what it was. I mean, for God's sakes, they had to go all the way through the ending, part of the ending, to get the damn entire episode in there, so... That might have just been to save up on time. What else? There wasn't too many other manga differences other than the censoring and maybe the perspective of certain scenes, but that's about it. And next week, we get the Sue sickness chapter and then Centauria and Ratchura. Pretty much, and actually that's one other thing I like about Ratchura. The dynamic she creates between the girls is so great. And that's when we get to see her obsession with tying things up. Unfortunately, though, Ratchura fans, we will never get to see the coffee. Well, it's not really. I call it the coffee chapter because of the ending of it, but it's really the Ratchura closure chapter. That's the best way to describe it, because that chapter is great. That's like one of my favorite chapters. Ironically, it's chapter 26, and I was like, motherfucker. So this is the only other chapter. Like the chapter that's coming next week is literally the only other good Ratchura shit we get. Because everything after this is the dating shit, which Ratchura is involved with, but the chapter that's focused on her and Centauria is way more about Centauria than it is her. She does get her chapter later on, I'm just saying it's kind of a disappointment. Anime-wise, this is like the best we're going to get from Ratchura. The rest of the time, she's just going to be kind of neutral. Well, in the end, probably during the Lala stuff, she's a little bit more relevant. But even at that point, it's not by a huge margin. Like, the major... That's about it. And then... And also, we need to see if they're going to do the swimming chapter. If they are, then this will end with Lala being, joined into the group. So, at the next week's preview, we'll know. If we don't see the swimming chapter in the preview... That probably means they're just going to completely skip it and we're going to go straight to chapter 25, which still wouldn't work because chapter 25 includes the dog girl who's introduced in the swimming chapter. So, I don't know what they're going to do. But I know what I'm going to do. Probably going to rewatch the second half of that episode again because that was some good shit. Also, enjoy the uncensored shit previews in the description. Anyways, this has been the Vlogs Game for your boy Terrell. Thank you guys for watching. And I will catch you guys next week where I will fangasm over my two favorite chapters being adapted. Well, two of my favorite chapters being adapted. Woo! Peace out.